Imagine uncovering a family betrayal so shocking it drives a preacher to commit an unspeakable act. A man of faith, a trusted leader, is pushed to his limits when the truth shatters his world. Pastor Elijah King, 42, was a respected figure in his Florida town. He preached about faith, family, and morality, earning the admiration of his congregation. His wife, Naomi, 38, was his devoted partner, balancing her roles as a mother and community leader. Together, they raised 5 children in what seemed like a perfect home. At the center of their family stood Henry King, Elijah's father, a longtime church elder and role model. Sunday dinners at Henry's house were a cherished tradition. Laughter, prayers, and discussions about faith filled the room. But one night, a simple school project changed everything. Elijah's daughter, Abigail, suggested a family DNA test. While the children were excited, Naomi hesitated. She glanced at Henry, her expression unreadable. Elijah reassured his wife. "We have nothing to hide," he said. The tests arrived, and weeks later the results revealed a horrifying truth. Elijah was not the father of his children. Worse, the true father was a close relative. The only possible match was Henry. Stunned, Elijah demanded answers. Naomi broke down, confessing to a terrible secret. For years, Henry had forced her into silence, using his authority to control her. All 5 children were his. She had been too afraid to speak, too ashamed to tell Elijah. Elijah's world crumbled. The father he revered, the wife he loved, the children he cherished. It was all a lie. His rage burned through him as he drove through the night, searching for answers, for justice. By dawn, his pain had turned to cold resolve. He had spent years preaching forgiveness, but this was beyond redemption. Someone had to pay. When Elijah returned home, his calm demeanor masked the storm within. Naomi sat alone, eyes filled with fear and hope. "Elijah, we can—" she started. "Don't," he cut her off, his voice like ice. "You destroyed everything." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "I was trapped. I never wanted this." Elijah gripped the knife in his hand. The man he once was had died with the truth. Now there was only vengeance. Elijah glared at Naomi, his voice cold. "You made me live a lie. Now you'll pay for it." With a sudden thrust, he drove the knife into her chest. Naomi gasped, eyes wide in shock as the blade pierced her. He pulled it out and struck again, this time in her stomach. The room filled with her cries and the sickening sound of tearing flesh. She tried to crawl away, blood pooling around her. But Elijah showed no mercy. Each stab carried years of anger and betrayal. "You should have told me the truth," he shouted. "You should have stopped him." When she finally stopped moving, her body lifeless on the floor, he stepped back, breathing hard. But his rage didn't fade. It shifted. One more person had to pay. The night air was heavy as he drove, gripping the wheel tight. His mind burned with betrayal. Naomi was gone. Now it was Henry's turn. He burst through the door, finding Henry at the dining table, a Bible open before him. Henry looked up, startled. "Elijah? What's going on?" he asked, voice edged with fear. Elijah said nothing. He tossed crumpled papers onto the table. "Explain this," he demanded, his voice trembling with fury. Henry glanced at the documents, then back at him. "I don't know what this is." "Don't lie to me," Elijah shouted. "You violated Naomi for years. You fathered my children." Henry stood, hands raised in defense. "Son, listen. Don't call me that," Elijah roared. "You destroyed my family." He lunged, plunging the knife into Henry's side. Henry staggered, blood seeping through his shirt. Elijah didn't stop. Again and again, the blade struck, years of rage fueling every blow. Henry fell, gasping for air, struggling to move. Elijah knelt beside him, his voice eerily calm. "This is for Naomi, for the lies, for my children." Gripping the knife, he carried out a gruesome punishment. Henry's screams filled the room, his body convulsing in agony. Blood spread beneath him. His cries weakened, then stopped. Silence fell. Elijah dropped the knife, staring at Henry's lifeless body, but there was no relief, no victory, only emptiness. He walked outside, clothes soaked in blood, and sat on the porch. Neighbors had heard the screams. Police arrived, weapons drawn. They expected a fight. Instead, they found Elijah sitting calmly, a Bible in his lap. He looked up, expression unreadable. "It's done," he said, raising his hands. "God's justice has been served." Officers cuffed him, uneasy. Inside, they found a scene of horror. Henry's mutilated body, blood everywhere. When they put Elijah in the car, he turned to one of them. "Naomi," he said, "she's at our house. She betrayed me too." Racing to Elijah's home, officers found Naomi's remains, her body brutally dismembered. The horror was beyond words. At the station, Elijah confessed without emotion. "She lied for years. He ruined everything. They had to face the consequences." His cold demeanor shocked investigators. When asked if he regretted his actions, he simply said, "They destroyed our family. I just finished what they started." News of the murders sent shockwaves through the community. Elijah, once a respected preacher, had become a monster. His trial gripped the nation. The defense argued he was driven to madness by betrayal. Experts spoke of his trauma, how discovering the truth shattered him. They claimed he was a broken man pushed too far. The prosecution, however, focused on the sheer brutality of his crimes. Betrayal, they said, did not justify such violence. The jury deliberated for days. In the end, they found him guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The judge, acknowledging the tragedy of it all, sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Elijah's children, now orphans, were placed in foster care. Their lives, like their family, torn apart by betrayal and bloodshed. The King family was once admired, but their story became a dark warning, a reminder that secrets and betrayal can destroy even the most devoted lives. As Elijah walked out of the courtroom in chains, he held his Bible tightly, whispering prayers to the God he believed had guided him. To the public, he was no longer a man of faith, but a symbol of how anger and hidden truths can lead to destruction. Elijah had lost everything in his search for justice. His fall from a respected preacher to a feared murderer was proof of how lies can tear lives apart. This story shows that even those seen as strong and faithful can crumble when faced with painful truths. Do you think Elijah's actions were an unavoidable result of betrayal, or did he go too far, past the point where any pain could justify his crimes? If this story left you questioning everything, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime cases that expose the darkest sides of humanity.